everyone, and welcome back to another exciting week of data analysis. This week's topic is going to be measures of central tendency, which tell us all about what a typical or average case is in a population or sample. So I'm going to start with some examples from our class. And let's say we want to describe a typical data analysis student in terms of some of the questions that I asked you in the survey. For example, has a typical data analysis student ever been in a physical fight? How afraid of being victimized is a typical data analysis student? And finally, how many times has a typical student in our class been stopped by the police in the last 3 years? So you might be looking at these frequency distributions and seeing what numbers or responses people had on these different questions, but doing that doesn't really give you a clear sense right away for what a typical case would be for any of these different questions or variables. So what we're going to go through today are some methods for deciding what constitutes a typical or average case. The first and easiest one of these is the mode. And the mode can be used for variables at any level of measurement. So whether you can put your categories in order, whether your categories are numerical, and whether there's a true 0 point, you can find the mode. And the mode simply boils down to the most frequent or common observation in a set of data. There are a couple of different ways that you can find the mode, and I'll go through examples fairly soon. One is just from eyeballing it. If you're looking at the observations in your data, sometimes you can tell just from looking at it what the most frequent or most common observation is. You can also find the mode really easily using a frequency distribution, which breaks down how frequent or common the different observations in your data are. Or you can find it looking at a bar chart or histogram. And so for each of these, I'm going to hop over to the document camera in a moment and show examples of how to find the mode. But before I do that, I also want to note that sometimes you'll have more than one mode. So in other words, if two different observations appear the same number of times in your data set, they can both be the most frequent or most common observation. So this ends up being a downside of the mode. You can get a most typical case, but sometimes you have multiple most typical cases, which is not ideal. So now I'm going to hop over to the document camera and show how to find the mode using each of these different strategies.